Obon is not a haunting, it's a homecoming. Every August, Japan opens its doors to the dead. Lanterns are lit, graves are swept, and for a few nights, ancestors walk amongst the living again. But not every spirit gets a warm welcome home. In this episode of Did I Wake You?, journalist Jake Adelstein, who spent years inside of Japan's criminal underworlds, walks us through a lesser-known corner of Obon, the Gaki, the hungry ghosts, restless spirits with no family to feed them, sent off only once they finally had their fill. It's a ritual with roots in a story older than the holiday itself. Mokuren, a disciple of the Buddha, looked into the afterlife and found his own mother starving there. His grief became a rite. That rite became Obon. Buddhist ritual and Shinto reverence for the dead have blurred into one practice for over 1,000 years, Shinbutsu Shugo, gods, Buddhas, undivided. Jake Adelstein, a journalist who spent decades inside Japan's underworld, from the Yakuza to the darkest corners of Tokyo's night. A man who has worn many hats: journalist, author, podcaster, and priest?
I am actually a registered Zen Buddhist priest. When I was in college, I through a series of chance encounters, I ended up teaching English briefly to this Zen Buddhist priest, Ryogen-san. And then he offered me a room in the temple because no one wanted to be a Zen Buddhist priest. So, we stayed friends for 30 years. And he's for a Japanese guy, very blunt, very straightforward, very sarcastic. Very hard for people to deal with because he just says exactly what's on his mind with no filter. In 2017, I was actually working on a story about karoshi, and I went to him to get an introduction to the Buddhist priest, same sect, that had officiated a funeral I had attended for a victim of karoshi, which of course he made the introductions. But then he also said, after a very long hours just sort of sitting around talking around the temple, out drinking tea, he said, I don't have a son because I never got married, and I don't have a disciple because I'm so hard to deal with, and unfortunately you're the only thing that I have. And so he convinced me to become his disciple. So I took the Buddhist vows and have been following in his footsteps. And then last year he got sick very quickly. He had undiagnosed Parkinson's, and then the Parkinson's medicine gave him kind of dementia, and then he passed away. And so there is a temporary abbot, like head of the temple, but I am not highly qualified enough in the Buddhist hierarchy to run the temple myself, and I'm not sure that I really want to do that, but somebody needs to do it. So I have to pass an abbot test in October. As a matter of fact, this morning I just got a message from the person who's going to be performing the tests and the ceremonies, or the master of ceremonies, is like, can you come up in October to prepare? Because it's like a 2-day test. And I'm like, yes, actually, can I come up earlier? Because there's a lot of questions I have asked. Don't ask me about the metaphysics of Zen Buddhism. I like the philosophy and the ethics. Whether there's reincarnation, whether after 49 days you really are reincarnated, I don't know. But having the inability to remember my previous reincarnations, or having not died yet, I couldn't tell you. But I mean, I do like it as a philosophy. The Obon Kyo itself is heavily disputed as to whether this is actually like a legitimate sutra in the world of Buddhism. In Soto Zen Buddhism, and I'm actually quite fond of this, there is something called osegaki, which is, we usually do the kanmon, which is a ceremony done to send hungry ghosts onto their next incarnation, right? Those are the spirits that haven't been able to leave this world and are still attached, and you basically bribe them with food and drink and invite them into the temple, and then you inform them as they're gorging on drinks and poke and fruits and whatever seems to be their fancy, like, hey, by the way, you're dead and you don't have a corporeal form and you can't accomplish anything in this world. It's time to move on. Like, the light's over there. Thanks for coming. Yeah. Time for you to move to the next generation. Which I always think it's a very nice ritual in a sense. But that's the Obon kyo. So
Yeah.
in Soto Shu, when we also do the Obon ceremonies, because that's part of Buddhism. The Osegaki is our big Obon ceremony, and one of the things I loved about Ryogen, he was like, "It is too hot to do this in August. We're moving it to October," and yes, this is why I like him. Like that's a very practical way to do things.
Whether the sutra is scripture or story, we should all be grateful if someone, somewhere, is still lighting a lantern to help you find your way home.